Yeah, well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Fair Life with Andrew McKee. I am, wait for it, Andrew McKee. So, hopefully the signal and everything is going all right for everyone, and that the sound is all in sync with the motion of the video. Just throwing that in, and if not, hopefully it will work out. And hello everyone. Hey, Kathy and Kurt and Jan and Anini. Yeah, it is another crazy week of Fair Life, because I'm kind of prepping to go on my trip to Louisiana for the Louisiana Ren Fair. So that's and at the same time also trying to get the server set up here so that we can continue Fair Life while I'm over there and get everything running as smoothly as possible. So that's kind of what I've been working on. little bit of this, a little bit of that. Hopefully all of you have been having a good week and nothing too crazy. As long as you stay away from the news, because, well, that's crazy. But I guess when is it not, really? But yeah, hey. So far so good. Good to hear, Chan. Always good. So yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and start with what's kind of been going on in I guess the I hate to say Ren Fair news because it sounds a little weird, but I get it kind of is. That's generally what I try to talk about. And don't worry, Damaris, no problem. I was just getting started. You're fine. But yeah, I sort of what's been going on is about 2.5 weeks ago, locals in Northumberland, England, woke up to the sight of, one of England's most famous trees lying on the ground after being cut down. So yeah, let's see if I can jump over. Yeah, here you go. That's what they woke up to. And this was, about 2.5 weeks ago on the 28th of September. And it was pretty crazy. Later that day, the Northumbria police arrested a 16-year-old boy in connection with the felling on suspicion of causing criminal mischief and damage. A 68-year-old man was also arrested the following day. So they are both out on bail for now, but the damage had been done. I mean, how many of you have I guess some of you have heard of that? Yeah, Jan's already mentioned something. Yeah, definitely very sad, very sad. I'm not going to be able to find out a little more about why. I didn't mention it the last couple of weeks because I was hoping I'd actually get a little content as to why this was done. But because it's an ongoing case, they really haven't mentioned the why, and I'm sure that'll come up in court later. But yeah, I'll definitely keep you updated as I hear more about that. But for those of you that don't know, this tree is a sycamore tree standing next to Hadrian's Wall. Let's see if I can get there's a good picture of it. Right there, you can see the Hadrian's Wall just going over the outcropping there. And it is probably one of the most photographed trees in the country. So it's really a big deal. Now, the sycamore tree was planted around 1870 or so. They don't know the exact year, but around then by the previous landowner, a Newcastle lawyer named John Clayton. And he just planted it as a landscape feature. He liked that location. I mean, when you look at it, it looks lovely. So he thought a tree would look great there. So he planted it. Now, so the trees, I mean, if you do the math real quick, it's around 150 years old, or at least it was. It's located in the gap, and let's get a better picture of the gap here. Okay, now you can see the stone outcropping on both sides, and it's located in a gap in the middle. Now, for all of those amateur geologists out there, the dips in it were caused by melting glacial waters a long time ago. But you get these dips here, and it just is a lovely feature in the land. And of course, you can tell. John Clayton, good idea to put a tree there. It looks really beautiful, and it's been used in, well, lots of television shows and some movies over the years. Most notably would probably be the 91 Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, with Kevin Costner, Morgan Freeman, and the classic Robin Hood story of him coming back to England and finding a boy who killed one of the king's deer, and the sheriff's men are going to kill him, and he stops them. And that was the location they used to film that. And it was it had several other bits to the scene in there. But it was definitely one of the major moments of the film. So yeah, I mean, you can kind of, here's another clip from the film. But yeah, I mean, it definitely was a major moment. And yeah, it just kind of that iconic tree in a movie feature that in that idea of Renaissance films. So I don't know. I mean, this. Well, okay. Now I think, Chris, you're thinking of Robin Hood Men in Tights. Because, yes, that is the classic Robin Hood story. So every single Robin Hood version has some element of that. And they do it their own way. And the in Robin Hood Men in Tights, the kid just screams and screams, and he comes in screaming. And then when they rescue him and he's all good, he's like, "Okay, I'm going to leave now." And then he just puts his hands on and screams and runs away. It's kind of being ironic for the screaming. But in this version, he doesn't really scream. Not really. I mean, maybe a little at the beginning, but not much of it. He's at the end. He's actually kind of smug. When Kevin Costner asks him if he had killed the king's deer, he just says lots of them, and then he smiles and runs away. So it's definitely a little different to the whole story, but it really just added a lot to the movie, and it was one of those iconic moments in the movie and in movies too. Yeah, you're not wrong. It definitely adds to that. I mean, it can take away from the fact that Kevin Costner did not have any type of good English accent to speak of. I mean, I know some people really like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. Some people hate it. I'm kind of a fan. Partly because of when it came out, it really brought Robin Hood back into the forefront. And also, we wouldn't have Robin Hood Men in Tights if Prince of Thieves didn't happen. Let's just say it. We would not have that Mel Brooks movie. So that alone makes it worth it. I mean, that is just such a wonderful film. So very funny. So yeah, I really do kind of like it. Of course, the soundtrack's pretty good, and there are there's definitely some good acting in there, some surprising casting. Some of it works, some of it is, but yeah, it's definitely an interesting take on the Robin Hood story. And when there have been a lot of films trying to do it, and a lot of them have failed miserably. Some of them are good, some of them not so good. But anyway, a very sad goodbye to the tree there. It's called the Sycamore Gap tree. The gap being in between the outcroppings, and the sycamore is the type of tree. But yeah, right now they're still haven't decided, as of today, they haven't decided what they're going to do with it. They have taken the remnants of the tree away, and they're going to cut it up and maybe do something with it, either have the wood available to make some sort of monument, memorial, or something good. But it's really just a sad moment. Yeah, Alan Rickman as the sheriff is definitely one of the good parts in there. And yeah, there are some icky points in there. I think the spoon scene is kind of hilarious in a just in a general sense. Yeah, yeah. Whether you're a fan of The Tick or not, it's still funny. Uh, yeah, it's just an interesting film. An interesting film. Yeah, I think a monument would be lovely, Damaris, but it's tough because some people just want a new tree, and the other problem is when the tree fell, it actually damaged Hadrian's Wall a little bit. Now, I know that sounds horrific, but let's be honest, it's been damaged over the centuries a lot anyway. Everything from locals taking some of the stones just to make um, their own houses. I mean, it's there's always a little bit of damage. So, and they're taking it very seriously and trying to repair it. So, not that much of a problem, but still, um, yeah, it's kind of rough. So, what? Okay, so Chris wants to go to some more happy stuff. That's fine. Um, I Well, I'm going to go ahead and go to Seven Reasons now because what I thought of for Seven Reasons was to do something that was, because I thought about Renaissance fair themed kind of movies that inspired Renaissance fair is really how I look at it, and iconic scenes in those films that involve trees. And I thought, I wonder if there are 7 of those. So I thought about it, and wouldn't you know it, I came up with 7 iconic tree scenes from different movies that have had an influence on Ren Fair. Because, of course, why wouldn't you do that, right? That's exactly what, I mean, that's what you would do, right? So let's jump over to that and do a quick 7 reasons and, and do this. So the first one, I went with is Arthur's Tree from Camelot. Camelot is a musical from 1967, but the musical on Broadway came out in 1960, a few years before the first Ren Fair, and it had a profound impact and influence on early Ren Fairs around the country, even before the movie, but the movie helped solidify that view. And it just, yeah, I think Arthur's Tree, let me see if I can get a picture up here of that. Thank you. I appreciate that. I sometimes try to be nerdy. I know it's shocking. But here, let's see. Okay, here we go. Here's Arthur's Tree. There's Richard Harris playing Arthur and Camelot there. And yeah, just the really in the Arthurian legend, there are definitely stories about trees, but in this version, what happened was he was thinking about Merlin while sitting in a tree outside of Camelot, and Guinevere, who's on her way to Camelot to marry the king, stops and under the tree and starts to pray, wanting to be free from this torture. And he falls out of the tree, and then of course she doesn't know who he is, and romance starts there. So yeah, it was yeah, I mean, just definitely a very iconic tree moment in that film and play. So I thought I would include that. Let's jump over to number 2, or I guess number 6 in this case. Number 6 is an obvious one, because this is the party tree. Let's see, picture of that. Really? Do I not have a... Oh, I can't. Oh, come on. It's not letting me switch the pictures. Let me see if I can do this again. Oh, man. Okay, let me get back and go back. It's not letting me do this. This is what I get for trying stuff quickly on the fly. Okay, let's do this. And then jump back and see if it lets me do it. No, it's not letting me do it. Not letting me change images. I wonder why. I'm going to have to think about this. Okay, well, I may not get pictures then. I'm sorry. I really thought I could do that. Well, I tried. Let's do let's do the party tree from the Fellowship of the Ring, Lord of the Rings, which is of course about uh, the whole tree for the hobbits to have Bilbo's birthday party under. And the interesting thing is, after that film came out, I mean, it was always sort of an influential thing in literature, but after the film came out, I saw a lot more of that at Faire than I did before. A lot more emphasis on putting special events under large trees. Just throwing it out. Normally, it's not something you would want because that's where birds tend to hang and and do stuff. So it gives you a little shade, but it's not always the best move. So yeah, not always great. But that's number 6, the party tree. Number 5, cherry blossoms. Now, this is from the 1981 film Excalibur. And there are actually a few different tree scenes in Excalibur. One would be the scene where Guinevere heals Arthur's wounds after he saves her father in a battle, and where they first meet and once again start their romance under a tree, going with the story. But I mean, it's a lovely tree. It's an interesting moment, but I wouldn't call it iconic. But there is a scene in there where Arthur is rejuvenated, thanks to the Holy Grail, and they, him and his knights, ride off in armor on horseback, and you see the land start to become revitalized and green again. And towards the end of that, they're riding through this group of cherry blossoms, all flying all around them, and it's a very iconic scene with the music, "O Fortuna," by Orff, and it's just gorgeous. It is just gorgeous. So yeah, definitely nice. Number 4, The Tree of Woe from Conan the Barbarian, 1982. Now, I know Conan, little out there for Ren Fair, but the first Ren Fair I ever went to, they had somebody who was dressed as Conan the Barbarian. And I see a Conan at almost every fair I go to. So it's definitely been an influence for a long time, especially since the movie. So yeah, and the Tree of Woe is when Conan was essentially, they tried to crucify him up on a tree. And I think that it shows kind of what made that film so popular, because a lot of hero action adventure films at the time, it was the hero can do no wrong. It's perfect. It was James Bond. I mean, it was just nobody does it better. Whether it's skill or luck or whatever, they always come through. And with this, I mean, Conan is very imperfect, makes a lot of mistakes, and almost loses his life more than once because of those mistakes. And he does learn from them. But it is, I think it made it a more powerful film because of that. I said almost every fair. There's definitely one at Texas Renaissance Festival. And honestly, yes, I think I saw somebody come as Conan, as a patron dressed as Conan, at least at one year at Excal, from what I remember, at Excalibur Fair. But yeah. No, Texas Renaissance Festival was my first. I mean, the first one I ever went to, not as a performer, but as a patron. Yeah, I went to the Texas Renaissance Festival as a kid, back around, this would have been 1990 or so. So yeah, yeah. So that is the Texas Renaissance Festival. I think 1990 was my first experience at Fair. So there you go. There you go. Yes. Right. So let's go with number 3. Number 3, This one is Romeo's Tree, the classic 1968 Romeo and Juliet, the balcony scene. Now, it's been done so many different ways. I've seen it where Romeo climbs a tree to get to the balcony, where he climbs a trellis, where he just goes up the stairs, where he talks and then just goes through the front door and goes up. I mean, they've done it so many different ways in different movies and performances, but this is still probably the iconic movie for Shakespeare, and especially Romeo and Juliet. I mean, generations of students saw this. I mean, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, if you watched a movie in high school about Shakespeare, this is the one they showed you. It just was that that ubiquitous. So yeah, I mean, and when he's climbing that tree up to get there, it is a very iconic moment, and both actors do it phenomenally well. Now, I know that that movie has kind of gotten a bit of a bad name recently, because the actors have talked about how badly they were treated on set by Zeffirelli and others. But you know, that may be very true. It's just that I don't think they have a monopoly on that, especially back then. I mean, the stuff Hitchcock, as a director, used to do to actors, that would get him arrested now. John Ford was a horrible jerk to a lot of actors. Maybe not John Wayne, but a lot of others. So yeah, it's really, it was kind of a different time. So I'm right with you, Drew. Right there with you. Okay, let's go ahead and go to number two. Number two. This one is obvious. The Hollowed Out Tree from The Princess Bride, 1987. Now, of course, Princess Bride, definitely a lot of influence on Ren Fairs. Let's be honest here. The hollowed out tree that housed the Pit of Despair was, well, I mean, they had a lot of different scenes there. Scenes where Count Ruben was going down to the Pit of Despair and found it initially. Sections with the albino and the wheelbarrow, and taking Wesley down there, and then Inigo finding it by calling his dead father's help to guide his sword towards it, which honestly, they could have done that so many ways wrong, but brilliantly did they do that scene. So yeah, it's just a very, even though people don't remember the tree very much, everything around the tree was very important. So while it was a bit of just a MacGuffin for the scene, it still was a big deal. So I put that in there because I liked it. And number one, I think this one's pretty obvious, honestly. This one is the Welcome to Sherwood tree from Robin Hood, The Adventures of Robin Hood, 1938, Errol Flynn. It was, well, okay, a little ways into the movie, there is a scene where the sheriff of Nottingham and Guy of Gisborne are going with Maid Marian and a lot of troops and a gold shipment down through Sherwood, and Robin and his men are hiding in trees and attack, and it's a very iconic moment, and they capture them all. And there's this scene with Robin standing on a tree, and he swings on a vine across the way and announces to the crowd, "Welcome to Sherwood," in a very accurately ironic way. So yes, it was that movie had a lot of influence on Brenda Fairs. So here you go. So these are my picks. I don't know if any of you had any other suggestions for movies that were very influential with trees, those iconic tree moments from Renaissance or medieval themed movies, or maybe some fantasy that made a difference. I mean, I thought about maybe Into the Woods a little bit, or something like that. I mean, there were a few that came to mind, but yeah, I tried to think of the ones that had the most influence on Ren Faire, and that was the list I came with. So yeah, if you have any others, please mention them in the comments. I'd like to hear them. Always interesting. But yeah, we've already 726. Yeah, it's always a danger when I geek out. It can go pretty quick. So let's jump over and go to the Faire map and get that out of the way. And if you have any other picks, please throw them in the comments. Let's start with Last Unicorn. That's yeah, that's not bad. Okay, Lisa, yeah, totally. I can see that. Yeah, maybe. Okay, let's jump in. And let's go ahead and do the cat-friendly version that we all love so much. Yay! Woohoo! Yay! Okay, we'll start off with King Richard's Fair in Carver, Massachusetts. And this is the last weekend there, and it's the theme is Fantasy Finale, appropriately called. Then jumping over to the Pennsylvania Ren Fair, this is the 10th out of 11 weekends. So they've only got 2 more weekends left in Manheim, Pennsylvania. And their theme, interestingly enough, is Halloween Days and Spooky Nights Part 2. So last week was Part 1, now it's Part 2. And what do you think next week's going to be? You guessed it, Part 3. So they kind of just throwing these themes together there, but oh well. Then jumping down to Maryland, we have the Maryland Renaissance Festival. This is their last weekend, too, in Annapolis, Maryland. Then going over to the Ravenwood Fair in Clearbrook, Virginia. It's first out of 2 weekends. And this is, it's only been around for a few years, and its theme is medieval, so you know. Then jumping down to the Carolina Renaissance Festival. This is the 4th out of 8 weekends. They're farther south, so they can get away with that. And it is Celtic Music Weekend. Not just Celtic Weekend. Celtic Music Weekend. I like that. Good job, Carolina. That's in Huntersville, North Carolina. Then we have the Tennessee Medieval Fair in Harriman, Tennessee. This is their 2nd weekend out of 3. Jumping down to Mississippi, we have the Mississippi Renaissance Festival. This is the only 1 weekend this weekend. It's a little north of Gulfport in Lyman, Mississippi. Then going up to the Ohio Renaissance Festival in Waynesville, Ohio, we have the 8th weekend out of 9, so just 2 more weekends left there too. And it's the Feast of Fools. It's the theme. Then going down to Indiana, the Southern Indiana Renaissance Fair in Charlestown, Indiana. And this is their 2nd and last weekend. Going over to the St. Louis Renaissance Festival. This is their last weekend out of 6. And their theme is Heroes and Villains in Wentzville, Missouri. Jumping over to the Central Missouri Renaissance Festival. 1 weekend, but they've been around for, a while. In Kingdom City, Missouri. They've moved around a little bit. I remember them, they started off in, I want to say Slater, Missouri. And then in Sedalia for several years. And now they're in... now they're in Kingdom City, Missouri. So that's kind of interesting. No, but this makes a lot more sense. It's right off of the interstate. So I bet traffic is a lot easier. Because if they've been around for a while, and I'm sure it gets difficult to get traffic into the smaller areas. So yeah, traffic should be a lot better there now. So good for them. Jumping down to Texas, we have the Texas Renaissance Festival. This is their 3rd weekend out of 8, and I know some of you watching are there, so definitely go check some of them out. The theme is pirate adventure, and that's in Todd Mission, Texas. And then going over just a little bit over east is the Southeast Texas Renaissance Fair. And their theme is Invasion of the Vikings. This is the second out of 5 weekends. It's kind of interesting for them to be that close to the Texas Renaissance Festival, although they are on the other side of Houston. So it's definitely an interesting choice for 5 weekends. That's really odd. Very strange, but I don't know. Hopefully they can still manage to get an audience. Going over to California, we have the Northern California Renaissance Fair, and that is their last weekend, 6 out of 6 weekends. And their theme is Halloween Fantasy. That's in Hollister, California. So yes. Always could. Yeah, it can be a little warm those first few weekends, but it gets better. That's what it's like. You never know. Because some years it's cooler, some years really warm. It's pretty odd. It's definitely a variable. But outside right now, the weather's nice. It is really nice. And yeah, I think you're right, Drew. It has been very, very cool for the Texas Renaissance Festival. Of course, it might be some of it might be in our minds because it's been so hot in Central Texas for all through the summer. Even dealing with 90-degree weather seems like a luxury. So yeah, it's but right now, the weather's much lower. It's great. We're hitting. I think we even hit the 50s here one night, so that was really nice. So definitely something to look forward to. Yeah, all good. Well, I'll keep you updated about the Sycamore Gap tree, and if any new information comes out about that, I'll throw it in on Mondays. But yeah, I'm keeping my eye out on it. It's just definitely a sad moment, but I just wanted to interject and throw in my trees and film bit. Pennsylvania. Very wet, huh? That's wild. Yeah, it's been interesting looking at all of the web pages for the different fairs as I go through and do the list together. For the last few years, having to kind of check them and go through that. The Pennsylvania web page is odd. Yeah, I mean, some of the web pages, they look like they're like 20 years old, and maybe some of them are. But the Pennsylvania one looks fairly new, but it doesn't support HTTPS, or I guess another way to look at it is an SSL certificate. So for the last 5 years, browsers, when you click on a page that doesn't support that, it pops up with this page is not secure. Do you want to connect? And you click on a button that says yes, and then it goes anyway. And Pennsylvania's website was doing that. Now, it could just be that they didn't renew the certificate, and they did have one, but that kind of just something I noticed that surprised me, because it doesn't cost anything to set one up, and usually you run a script automatically that renews it for you. So that surprised me. But it's always interesting to see the different websites, because some of them are so well done and some of them so not, and a lot of them in between. Really? Then maybe it just happened. Maybe they forgot to renew, that it was a problem. I mean, it makes sense that it would be their renewal date would be around when the fair is going on. So maybe it was a simple cron job problem where it was not the script wasn't automatically renewing it. So maybe that's what's going on. But it's just interesting seeing those little glitches on websites. But yeah, some websites are just so sad and how bad they are, and others. But no, I'm about to redo the Life's a Faire website and get that going in good shape, and redo my personal website. That's on my list for the next few months. So I'm going to be working hard on that to get that going, kind of in that web design mood. So something to look out for. I'll keep you updated on that. Okay. It was interesting. And I checked it on multiple browsers just to be sure, because I was really surprised by that. I checked it on Firefox and I checked it on Chrome, just to be sure, because, sometimes there's a browser issue, but between the two of them, shouldn't have been a problem. So that surprised me a lot. And I tested it, and it seemed to be a certificate problem. Also true. I mean, it could have been some sort of change. So yeah. Sometimes transitions cause you gotta work with stuff to make it go. So yeah, definitely true. Anyway, just stuff I noticed. You mentioned Pennsylvania, so it just popped in my head. Sorry, I didn't mean to dwell on that too much. But yeah, but it is interesting, all the different websites. What might be interesting? I wonder, it might be kind of cool to have a list of the best Ren Fair websites out there. I mean, just for the Renaissance festivals themselves. I mean, I've looked at all of them so much now, every week. The not so good to the really good, the huge fairs to the small fairs. And I'll be honest, some of the larger fairs don't have great websites. I mean, some of them look flashy, but they're not necessarily the most user-friendly. Generally, if you don't have the actual dates of the fair on the front page, what are you doing? or the location of the fair where you can easily get there and find it. I mean, there's a lot of information that should be very upfront and basic, and instead they want to just show videos and animations and all this other stuff that really doesn't help anybody who wants to just find out what the ticket price is. So yeah, it's the user-friendly aspect. I don't know, it might be interesting to come up with the best of pages. Right. Yeah, you're not wrong. Anyway, but anyway, yeah, I'm going off topic, so something to think about. But take care, and I will see you next week. So have a good one, and enjoy this cooler weather, because it'll be warm again next year, but enjoy it while we can. It is very lovely, very comfortable, and a pleasure to enjoy this in a fair life. Take care. Bye.